It's kind of a weird format to present where we don't hear anything from you until it comes to question time. So if you want to do us a favor, and if you can hear us and you're live out there, go ahead and just go into your uh, question tab and just type in a little message that says, "Hi, we're here. I can hear you," and then that way Ian can kind of make sure that you guys can hear everything.
Yep, looks like they can
Um,
hear us.
cool.
Got three coming in. Nice, guys.
And like Ian said, Ian's going to be keeping me on track tonight. We kind of trade off this duty every now and then where he'll present and I'll moderate and vice versa. So if I get off track, hopefully he can keep me steered in. But we're going to be going through 90 minutes of a new user webinar. Pretty much we're going to talk about what Buzztouch is, how it works. We're going to build an app. We're going to see the app work and obviously entertain all your questions like Ian said. So I'm going to start off, before we get into the main presentation, just going to jump over to the website, the Buzztouch website that you guys have all seen. If you haven't made it to the About screen yet, the About screen gives a little background on what Buzztouch is, and we're going to hit on some of these points in the actual presentation. But I'd like to also point out, point out, who is, the human beings behind Buzztouch. When I first found Buzztouch and then read about what it was, I didn't think it was possible that there was like two or three guys doing all this, and as it turns out, there was, and David Book started it. Steve's been helping him, and they've been doing a great job for many years. And just recently, they invited on the rest of the team there. You can see this is me, Chris. Here's Ian, and you'll see Ian's name in the list as Warren Evans. That's just because he has to log in as Warren to be the moderator for this presentation. You can see Warren down here, and then Susan, Tony, and Trish. That's the whole team there, and we try to keep this thing going. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is we're going to answer these questions here for you guys, and whether you're brand new, just logged in a couple days ago, or you've been around for a while. If this is your first new user webinar, I want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about the product and service. If this isn't your first one, then welcome back. We have several repeat attendees, just because they have more questions or they want to see it again. And we also try to record all of these and put them on YouTube as well, so you can go back and review some of the stuff that we showed you. So we're going to go over these questions here. What is Buzztouch? What can you do with Buzztouch? How does Buzztouch work? Who is Buzztouch for? How is Buzztouch different? And then where do I start? And that's going to pretty much lead us all the way through the presentation, and I'll be jumping back and forth between the website and this presentation to show you around the site, get you oriented on where to go, what to do, how to get a project going. We're going to actually build a iPhone app while we're here, and have a lot of fun. So this is, again, right off the About Us screen, what Buzztouch is, and you can see it's a big long paragraph that kind of boils down to it's a piece of software or a website that helps people build apps. I think if David Book had to sum it up, that's the way he best likes it. It took him a while to really figure out how to sum it up, but that's how he likes to describe it now, is he likes to help people make apps. So making apps isn't something that everybody could do just by opening a book and trying to learn the hard way. So he developed this product to make it easier, or at least lessen the curve. Anytime that you do that, anytime you try to make something easier for somebody, you run the risk of making it too simple, and that's where Buzztouch kind of shines. As we describe how it works, you'll see that you can start off simple, and then you can just expand from there and start to really make some drastic changes in the code. So you can see that it's already being used by thousands of people. 175,000 people have logged in, created an account, have started making apps, and there are, I can't even start to imagine how many apps are in the App Store right now that are running from a Buzztouch source code. So that's, in a nutshell, what it is. Works with Android and iOS, as you'll see as we start going through the website. So what can you do with Buzztouch? Well, if we're doing what we're setting out to do, then we're helping you quickly develop mobile apps of varying complexity. And then another thing that makes Buzztouch kind of special is that once you create this app, you can also manage it with dynamic content right from the online control panel. So what that means, and what you'll see us demonstrate tonight, is that once you make the app, you download the source code, and you compile it, you get it working, you can deploy it out there to the real world, have people using it, and then you can make changes to it in your control panel without having to recompile, without having to send it back to them, without them having to update through a normal update process. So that can be for a reason, such a simple reason such as you made a typo and you wanted to fix it, which would normally in the real way, if I can say real way of making, the old-fashioned way of making an app, you'd have to recompile it, resubmit it to either iTunes or Google Play, wait for them to approve it, and then get it out there. It might take a week or so just because you made a typo. Well, that gets eliminated by this process that we use here. Or it could be, new content, either new content or updated content. You can, change a gig schedule on a band app or something like that, or change a menu item on a restaurant's app, all without having to recompile. So that's one of the things that makes it great. It really speeds up the development process, and then it really helps you after the finished product is deployed. So how does it work? These are the steps that we take here to make an app. You create a project, and a project in the same terms as an application, whether it's going to be an iPhone app or an Android app. In the control panel, it's called a project. You're going to add and configure your screens. So if you think about most of the apps that you use, you have several screens that you navigate through, whether they're menus or they're video files or whatever they are. Each screen has a purpose. So in our terminology at Buzztouch, each of those screens is going to belong to a plugin. A plugin is going to help you create that. You're going to download the source code, and this source code is it's all the hard code stuff that you would if you opened up the how to build an iPhone app. That's the stuff you'd have to type in yourself. Well, David's done that for you, and I'll get more into that later. So you're going to download the source code. You're going to open it up in your compiler and compile it. And then once you get that running on a device or a simulator, that's where you can start adding more stuff to it. Once you get an app running in the simulator or running on an iPhone or an Android device, that's what we've called, we kind of steal the term aha moment. That's when we know that we've really captured somebody's full attention, is when you can see something that you created actually running on a phone or on a device or a simulator. Then you've proven to yourself, in essence, that you can do this. And it's not something that's easy. I've come from a background that luckily I have a little bit of programming experience, but nothing in the iPhone world. And when I first set out to test the waters of making an app, I bought the books. I read the chapters. I wanted to make my first little project, make the little, the token hello world project. And I hit compile, and it didn't work. And I said, what the heck, I should be able to do this. And it was very frustrating. So getting to the point that we'll be able to, within a few minutes, from the time that I first log into Buzztouch to getting something running on a simulator or a phone, will be a few minutes. That's just mind-blowing when you come from digging into books and trying to do it the hard way. So who's Buzztouch for? The first line pretty much says it all. Anyone and everyone. I've been using Buzztouch for over 2 years now, and I've seen the full gambit of people that have logged in, and it's really neat to see when I start describing the community of people that have joined and have embraced this product. It's really neat to see all the different backgrounds and think about who's using it and what their motivation was for wanting to make an app or wanting to find a solution for what they're doing. So it can be non-developers, people who have no background at all that just want to make an app. It can be developers, someone who's got experience but just wants to do it easier. I've got a friend who's made several iPhone apps, like I said, the traditional way, coding everything by hand. And I showed him how to use Buzztouch, and he was just blown away. He said this would save me weeks of development time, and he can still do the same stuff that he's already doing. Web developers is another one that we see a lot of. People who have, either made their business or made their living um, over the last couple decades, in web development. This is the new generation of that. Making an app for someone, making a end product for a client is definitely a career that you can pursue. So web developers that want to stay up with the times have come, or people that have just built websites in the past that have a little bit of HTML and CSS kind of background can really make a good looking app with Buzztouch and really help them along the way. We've seen businesses, people who run either large businesses, like Fortune 500 businesses. We've seen people come and create an app for their company with Buzztouch, and then little mom and pop shops of people who have just a small in-home business that want to promote their products or give their customers an easier way of navigating their catalog or ordering new supplies and stuff like that, making an app that way. And then, like I said, I've seen everything from doctors, teachers, photographers, musicians, entrepreneurs, everything. And each time I see something unique, it's just neat to see. Oh wow, why didn't I think that this person would need to do this? And it's obvious they do. This is just a new technology that everybody wants to get into. So how is Buzztouch different? We're going to go over a couple things that make Buzztouch different, but the first one that I always mention is the community. I've been, online for as long as online has been online. I've been in BBSs, I've been in forums, I've been in, chat groups and stuff like that, and I've never seen a community that helps each other more than what I'm experiencing here at Buzztouch. And you can see I've got here on the screen what was the list of top 25 users. We're going to go visit the forums real quick and just kind of get a sample of what I'm talking about. So in the forums, you'll hear us tout the true power of the forums over and over and over again in this this presentation, but it's really because it's true. Whether it's you're trying to get an answer for something that you're stumbling on, or if you are just announcing a new app that you've created and you want to thank people for it, or you're looking for help for design problems or something, you pretty much ask it and there's going to be somebody that has an answer pretty quickly. You can see that there's 14,437 topics since we've converted to this type forum. You can see how they break down into all the different categories, and there's just a ton of information. If you can search for something, you'll usually find the answers that you're looking for. If you don't find the answers, then just go ahead and ask it and you'll find it. If you think about it, we're all kind of doing the same thing. We all have different reasons for it, but at some point we're all kind of competing in this app market. But I never see that in this forum. Everybody's just a community that's helping each other, whether they're going to have an app in the market that's going to be competing with mine or not. We don't even think about that here. We just want to help each other succeed with what it is we're trying to do. Hold on just a second. Can you, hey Ian, what is it that you're asking on the chat?
Sorry, one of the users just asked if you can maximize your slides during the presentation. I'm not sure if it's just on their end, the window. We are recording this presentation for later use, though. So I think their window might just be not stretched to its fullest, maybe.
Okay, yeah, this is probably as big as I can get before losing something. All right, so you can see we've got top 25 people here. Just give them a little shout out real quick. You can see how many posts like Mark or Go Northwest, 5,931. This Buzztouch website might disappear if he ever disappeared. He's constantly answering questions. You can see Mac Apple Keith, as we know him, 3,428 posts. just a tremendous amount of support going on, and everybody willing to help each other out. So that is, again, first and foremost, what makes Buzztouch different. I've been with other solutions or other products like this, and you ask a question and you hear the crickets chirping. You know, there's not even somebody behind the scenes that can answer the question, let alone a user. And most of the times, you can see that I'll log into the forum several times during the day, and I know the rest of the team does. And usually, before we can even answer a question, one of our own members has answered the question for us. So, you know, that really helps us out. We really value that type of membership that can you know, self-support the other members. I think it's great. The other big difference between Buzztouch and some of the other products and solutions out there is that you get to keep the code. So what I mean by that is we've talked about the process of making an app is you create the project, you add some stuff to it, you download the source code. Well, the source code is just that. When I open up one of the projects, you'll see that the source code, it's got about 20,000 lines of code, which is just absolutely amazing. And that's yours. It's yours to manipulate, it's yours to keep, it's yours to use. And that's important when you think about there are a lot of services out there that will either you kind of add all your content to it and they compile it and they give you a finished product, but there's no source code, so you can never go back and change it. You could never, you know, if that company disappeared tomorrow, you wouldn't be able to make any changes because all you have is a compiled end product. And that's not a good thing, especially if you're going to be doing this work professionally, or if you're going to be working for clients. The last thing I'd ever want to do is tell a client, I'm sorry, I can't support your app anymore because XYZ company that I was using, you know, disappeared. So, you know, that's one of the things that really opened my eyes to Buzztouch when I was looking for this type of solution. Was I wanted to be able to, you know, if Buzztouch disappeared tomorrow, which it didn't, that was over 2 years ago when I found it. But if they had disappeared, I would still have something I could work with. I'd still have a project that I could, you know, edit the code on. So that is huge. A lot of the other companies will maintain control of that source code because they know they don't want you to take the product and disappear with it and edit it yourself. They want to kind of keep you coming back and, you know, renewing your subscription, whether it's a monthly subscription or something like that. They want to keep you tied to their product however they can. There's other types of services that will submit the app for a fee, and that's good if you're just looking for a quick and nasty product, get it done, and have limited amount of, you know, having to learn anything. You just want to just pay somebody pretty much to make the app for you, and that's fine. But with Buzztouch, once you get that product or that project and you download the source code, you can you know, compile it and upload it tomorrow, or you can keep on working on it and upload it a year from now. It's completely in your control. Some services will charge you for the source code. I've seen some other products out there that you can get the kind of, you know, if you want to call it the beginner account, where you can make an app and play around with it and download the you know, the compiled product. Or if you pay X amount dollars more, you can do the pro one, where you can actually get some of the source code to edit and make some changes to yourself. So we don't distinguish that. You know, when we get into showing and describing what the memberships options are here, you'll see that it doesn't matter whether you're a free member or a paying member, you still get that source code and it's yours to keep. And then everything you design, like it says right there, everything you design and create at Buzztouch is yours to keep. And that's big when you think about the possibilities of companies, and like I said, Buzztouch isn't going anywhere, but when you think about that in the back of your mind, you don't want to be tied to something that could disappear and then you'd have to start from scratch again. That's just not a good feeling. Now this next difference here, project scalability. This is another big one that really enticed me, and that is there's a lot of other app builders out there, and we don't ever name names of what the competition is. You know, if you've searched around, you've found them, but there's other app builders out there that that you can make an app without learning a programming language, but some of them are real simple, and I like to call them the cookie cutter apps. So you can add a couple screens and compile it and have a finished product, but there's really nothing more you can do than that. So the functionality is very low. There's some products out there that will do shortcuts for you, but you still have to learn another programming language, and that's okay if you're really interested in learning a new programming language, but just not maybe Objective-C or Java. And at some point, there's still a level of complexity to that. Buzztouch kind of sits right there in the middle where you can kind of make an app nice and quick, like we'll show you today. But then, as you do learn more, and we always encourage you to learn more, as you do learn more, you can start integrating more and more code into apps and increasing the functionality. And at that point, there is no limits to what you can make. We see the question in the forums all the time, hey, can you use Buzztouch to create this app, this type of app, whether it's a game or a database-driven app or whatever it is? And the answer is always yes, if you know how. And that's kind of an awkward answer to give to someone. It doesn't really answer the question, but it's really the best answer for it. Yes, you can do anything that you could if you hand-coded, as long as you're willing to put some work into it. And I've seen some people that started off with zero experience with programming, and they use the power of Google and search out, how do I do this, how do I do that, and they find little snippets of code and they copy and paste it into their Buzztouch project, and next thing you know, they've got a project that's doing all the things they wanted to without them having to learn the code. They've just kind of borrowed it from all the many places out there. So that's one of the things you can do. Once you get this source code, you can manipulate it however you want. You can add to it, you can change it, and that's what I call project scalability. You can start off with something, and I might even dare say cookie cutter-ish, but you can tweak it from there and add more and more and more, and it just gets better and better, especially when you think about this next one here, plugins. What a plugin is, I described a plugin at first as being one of your screens. So whether a plugin is just a picture or a video or a menu, that's the basic thought process of a plugin. It's going to be one screen in your project. But what we've got at Buzztouch is we've got our own plugin developers, which are just other users and members like you and me, who are making new plugins and uploading them into the Buzztouch market. And some of them cost a couple bucks, some of them are free, and you can add those to your project. So it's a very exciting time for us here at Buzztouch, because this plugin market is really starting to get some momentum, and we've got some members that are submitting some really awesome plugins, whether they're new types of menus, really dazzling menus, or one of the newest ones that we just saw come in yesterday was a weather app, which you can add a weather screen to your app, which wasn't available before. So these things, they add expandability to your project and functionality, and they really help out with, especially with Apple having a very strict approval process. They don't want to see the cookie cutter apps. They're getting sick of it. Their market's getting full, and they don't want to see cheesy little apps. They'll send it right back, and they'll say, hey, you need to put something in that makes this app worth something. So some of these new plugins that come in are doing that for us, are helping our members add more functionality to their app, making their app a better product, and in essence making it more marketable in Apple's market or Google Play market. And the end result is just a better app, and that's really all you can really hope for, is to make a decent app. All right, so that brings us up to the first break for questions. I'll have you guys either type them into the question pane or raise your hand, and if it's a question that needs some two-way conversation, we'll be happy to open up your mic for you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we've got a question already from Steve, and he's asking, does updating mean notifications need to be enabled for the iOS app? And actually, I'll unmute your mic, Steve, and we'll have a little chat if you'd like. Hold on. Okay, you should be unmuted, Steve. Can you hear us? You there, Steve? I unmuted your mic so you can speak if you'd like.
And if you guys don't have microphones hooked up to your computers, that's completely fine too. You can
Yeah.
just type something into the question pane, and we'll try to answer it that way. But the question was, do you need to have the update enabled? Is that what it was?
Yeah, does updating mean notifications need to be enabled for the iOS app? And I guess maybe he's talking about refreshing an app, updating the.
Okay. Um, there are push notifications, which yes, you would have to set that up at Apple in that case. But for the updating process that I'm talking about with Buzztouch, that does not require Apple to know that you're pushing anything through. And once I build the sample app, you'll see what I mean by that. The updating just kind of happens. It's going to pop up and it's going to tell your end user, hey, there's something new about this app. Do you want to download it now? And if they click yes, then it just instantly downloads any updates to it, and it doesn't go through the normal update process like you would for, when you think about getting a new update for Angry Birds and you have to go to the update tab and hit download. It's not like that. It just happens all within the app itself. So that's a good question.
Yeah, real good question. Anybody else have anything? Oh, here we go. Oh yeah, Steve, he just typed yes. I mean push notifications.
Okay, push notifications we might talk about a little bit later on. They are possible with Buzztouch. And if you do have a push notification set up in your app, then yes, you have to set up a couple extra things at Apple so that
Right.
Apple knows what to do with those notifications.
And he's here saying now, so we don't need to enable push notifications. Cool. So he was meaning just to update the app, you don't need push notifications. That's correct. Yeah,
Right.
that was his question. So good question. All right.
All right.
Anybody else
Anybody
have any?
else? All right. They're taking it easy on me, Ian. If if another one pops up, just go ahead and type it up, and we'll
Yeah,
get to
cool.
it the next time we break. But if not, I'll go ahead and continue to plug along here.
Here's one from Sandra, really quick.
Okay.
And I don't know if she has a mic or not, but this says there are updated plugins which are not on the BuzzTouch site. If I have downloaded them, how do I integrate them into Xcode? And I guess we could try to explain that now, but we could build the app and open up Xcode. We can maybe field this question a little later. Does that make more sense to actually see
Yeah.
Xcode
Yeah.
running with plugins and
Yeah, that might be a good idea because I think we have a question break right after I hit, after I build the app. So
right?
we'll go back to that one.
Okay,
Good question.
Sandra said okay.
Okay.
So and I can unmute you later too, Sandra, if you want to talk about it over the microphone as well. But not sure if you have a mic or not. But good question. We'll definitely get to it.
All right. Very good. So that brings us up to the question, where do I start? Um, I'm assuming that most of you have already signed up for Buzztouch, and that's how you found out about this webinar, and we thank you for that. You may or may not have made it through all these steps, so I'm going to go ahead and describe them now and give us our reasons for why we suggest them. So it says here to explore your account menu and set up your public profile, or your developer profile, and your email settings. So let me show you what that means real quick, just in case you guys haven't set that up yet. So for this demonstration, I've got just a guest account set up. Just Joe Guest is my little dummy guy here. And when I look at my public profile first, you can see that there's a screen name that you want to put in. That's going to be your screen name for the forms. You can upload an image, obviously a little avatar image, put in a little welcome message, put in your location, which may seem silly, but people like to know where you're from. And if we ever have a live event, like we're having in a couple weeks in St. Louis, we always like to look to see if there's anybody that is a member or a guest that lives in that area, and we can give them a little special email saying, "Hey, we're going to be in your town. We'd like for you to join us." So that's the the public profile. There's also what we call a developer profile, which you can kind of put some information in about what it is that you're doing with mobile development. The first thing it asks about is your development environment. Right now, that's just a curiosity of ours to make sure that you guys are using, the latest version of OS X or the latest version of Xcode or Eclipse. And that gives us an idea of what our members are using, so that we know. We like to keep all the updates. When Apple brings out a new version of iOS, that changes things in Xcode, that changes things in how you have to code an app. So we like to make those changes, but we like to make sure that you guys are also keeping up to date too, because some projects will have to be updated depending on what gets changed, and some of, Google does the same thing with their Java environment. Visibility, where it is that your developer profile is going to be. If you have any links that you want to add to either website or YouTube or LinkedIn, you can add all that in there. Again, another description that will show up on your developer page. Any skills that you may have. You never know when someone might be looking for maybe graphic design or some kind of help with their project, and they see this information on your developer profile, and they have the option of contacting you if you want them to, and saying, hey, well, I'd like to hire you to do some graphic design for me or something like that. Experience, just another block of text that you can put in experience that you have. And then languages. And then if you want to announce an hourly rate, maybe I'm just learning this app stuff, but I'm a really good graphic artist. I can put in my hourly rate in there, and people can get an idea of what it is that I do and how much it would cost them to do it. The last one I talked about was the email settings. For you to receive private messages or emails saying that you've received a private message, or emails saying that someone's replied to one of your posts, then you want to go in here and kind of set up your email options, just to make sure that you are getting the emails that you want. I like to receive an email whenever somebody private messages me, so that I can know right away when somebody wants to get a hold of me. I also like to know when somebody replies to one of my posts, because most of the time I'm asking a question, hey, how can I do this? And if somebody answers it right away, I want to kind of know. So set those email settings up to how you prefer them. The next line there says visit the forum. We visited that, but as we look back in the forum, let me jump back there again real quick. There is a complete forum called Introduce Yourself. So we added this in a little while back so that people could jump in, say hello right away, give us a little quick story if you want about who you are, where you're from, why you're looking to make an app, and you'll be surprised how many people you see with the same kind of interests and same kind of motivations as you. Sometimes in your same hometown, which is always kind of neat to see someone pop up that's that close to you. So take a quick moment and go in here, post something up, and say, this is who I am. We'd like to be introduced to you guys. Then there's the Buzztouch Learning Path. The Buzztouch Learning Path was it's a series of kind of tutorials with quizzes built in to make sure that you're actually listening to the tutorials, and you can go through and listen and learn some stuff about Buzztouch. There is a couple different learning paths. The first one is called the Buzztouch Learning Path, which kind of gives you an introduction to how the site works. Very similar to what we're doing here, but it might go into a couple different subjects. It's about 32 minutes total for all of the modules of that learning path. It gives you it gives you a star. When we look at the users again, let me go back to the main forums. Actually, let me just look at the top 25. You'll see underneath the picture here all these stars. For each learning path that you complete, and there's 3 different ones right now. One is the Buzztouch, one is for iOS or Apple, and one is for Android. You'll get a star, and that star is just kind of telling the rest of the forums, hey, I care about this. I've taken the time to learn this stuff, and I'm not asking a question because I haven't used the resources. I'm asking a question because I still have a valid question. So it kind of helps us know that you care and you've taken the time. Much like any other forum that you've ever been to, the top post always says, hey, did you read the facts first? Did you search the forum first? Did you do all this? And this is just our way of knowing that yes, you have. So when you look at Buzztouch U, um, this is a description of what the Buzztouch University is, or what the learning paths are. When you go into your account, you'll actually see um, a link for your own Buzztouch learning path. And these are the first three here, the Buzztouch, the iOS, and the Android, that are ready for you to take. So depending on how much you want to learn, you can take those three. The rest of them are still kind of in development. It's kind of hard to keep up to date with uh, a product, and not just that, but a whole industry that changes as rapidly. But we're doing our best to keep the stuff updated. And you know, take the learning path, learn a little bit, get your first star, and go from there. And then the how-tos page, separate from the forum, we have a how-to page. So let's look at that real quick. And on here is kind of all the tutorials that either someone at Buzztouch has made, or one of the members of the forum has made. And there's just an absolute ton of information here. So you can see that there's other websites that deal with Buzztouch related content, information about the self-hosting product, which we'll talk about in a minute. iOS or Android, not specific. iOS specific, Android specific, just everything. And if you're brand new to this, before you ask a question, you know, just take a quick peek here, because a lot of times, and we're always helpful, you know, willing to help, but a lot of times someone will say, hey, how can I, you know, set up Xcode? And there may already be a tutorial in here that has step-by-step instructions on where to go to download Xcode, how to set it up, and so on and so forth. So there is an absolute ton of information here that can help you. And then even once you're going, and once you get your app and you want to just make it a little bit better, like here's an example of a more advanced tutorial. Once you get something completed, maybe I want to add Game Center capabilities to one of my apps, and there's instructions there. So another great resource, tons of stuff to read. All right, so that brings us up to making an app. So I'm going to stay in my my Joe user account there. I'm going to create an app and add a couple plugins and pages to it, and then go from there. So these are the steps I'm going to take here. I'm going to add a few screens. I'm going to download the source code. I'm going to open that source code in a compiler, and then I'm going to launch the simulator. And that's all it takes to get hooked. So in this particular webinar, I'm going to be using the Xcode environment, which is going to be for an iOS app, or for an iPhone app, if you will. The same steps would be taken for an Android app as well. It's just you'd be using Eclipse instead of Xcode. And so let's get right into it. So I'm going to go back to my account menu, back at Buzztouch. Anytime you want to get to your account menu, the easiest way is just clicking on your name up here. And in my account menu, there's going to be a list of applications. So you can see I've got one application in there that I started at some point. I'm just going to create a new one here. So I'm going to click on New App. And this gives me a link here to create a new app using the online control panel. The first thing I want to do is give it a name. So I'm going to call it maybe New User Demo. There's a couple checkboxes to click on. One saying that you agree to you know, the copyright laws, and I'm not going to make an app with copyright protected information in it, and then some other terms of service. Feel free to browse through them if you want. It's nothing. It's not like the 32-page iTunes one that you get. It's all just common, you know, legal jargon. This is going to create the app in my database, and then give me an opportunity right here to continue into the control panel. So now I've got my new user demo, and this is the control panel for this demo. If I go back to applications here, you'll see my list of applications. Every one that I go to will lead me again to the main control panel. So this is where you're going to be spending the bulk of your time when you're compiling or putting together your app. But what I'm going to do before I even add any screens at all is I'm just going to download the source code right away. And this is just to demonstrate how you can start off with a source code. Throughout this whole thing, I won't make any changes to the code itself. I won't be typing any code or copying or pasting any code in the source code. I'm going to be doing all my configuration in the control panel. So I'm going to click on the link to download it. It's going to ask me which package do I want to download, whether Apple or Android. So I'm going to tell it to prepare me an Apple download. It takes just a couple seconds to get all the files zipped up, and then it gives me an option to download that zip. So now I've got this folder here, and you can see the folders and the files in this folder. And there is an instructions file here, and when you read that instructions file, it'll tell you how to get this project set up into Xcode. I'm just going to go ahead and do the steps for you since I've done this before. So I'm going to find my actual project, which is this one right here, new user demo.xcode project. That's the actual project file that Xcode needs. So when you double click on that, it's going to open up this project in Xcode. It's going to take a couple seconds to index it. It's going to show me that I've got this much information in here first. But one of the steps that it has you do in the instruction file, once you download this app, is to get the plugins in there. So there's a couple folders that are in the download that you need to add to Xcode. So right now, the plugins is really the only important one, but there may be information depending on what you've done so far in the app, in your apps, in your docs, your images, your sound and video. So I'm just going to grab all those, just drag them right into my Xcode project. Tell them I want to copy them into the directory. It's going to add those, and now everything I need to get this thing going is ready to go. So once it gets done indexing all those extra files I just added in there, I can pick a simulator here, and now you know I haven't done anything to this app yet, so I'm still going to compile it. I'm going to get it running on my simulator, and then I'm going to start adding stuff to it. So the first time you compile to a simulator, it has to copy some of the files on there. After that, once you go through the refresh process, it really it's a lot quicker because it doesn't have to copy as many files over. But pretty soon here, my iPhone simulator is going to pop up, and I'm going to have right now just a blank app. And here we go. So this is what it starts off with, and it's not completely blank, and I'll show you why. It starts us off with one screen. Now the screen has nothing on it, has no functionality whatsoever, but we're going to change that real quick. So once I go back to my project control panel, you can see one of the things on here is screens and actions. That's where we're going to spend most of the time and add all of our information to. There's other things in here to configure too, like uploading an app icon. I'm just going to keep it blank for right now. It's going to use a default icon. Before I do compile it for the store, obviously I want to add a nice pretty icon to it. Some of the core properties, if you need to do some advanced changes to the way that the app works, we're not going to do that today. Layouts and tabs, we'll look at that here in a second, but I'm going to go straight into screens and actions. So in the screens and actions, this is really where we're going to add our plugins. So you can see it's already got one built in there, and it's called home screen menu, which is just a list menu, a simple list menu that has nothing linked to it. And that's exactly what I'm seeing here, is this list menu called home, and there's nothing linked to it. So I'm gonna keep that. I'm gonna add some stuff to it. Once we go into one of the actual screens, this is what we call a simple list menu, and I've got all these advanced properties that I can change on it. So you can see I can change things in the top navigation bar. this right here is where it says home, is exactly what was showing up here, home. The background color, if I wanted to change the background color, and I can select a different color, maybe let's go all black, and hit save on that. And just a simple change like that, I can come back in here, hit my refresh button, and you can see it changes right away. As we go down here, this is where we actually add the row items. So I'm going to add a couple items. Let's say I wanted to make a travel guide or a city guide type app for Chicago. So I'm going to add another menu on here that links from my main menu. And let's say I'm going to make a sub-menu called dining, where I'm going to list some restaurants. And I want that menu to be, oops, I want that menu to be another, darn it, another menu simple or another list menu. Lost my keyboard. Stand by. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, it happens. Actually, we did have a question, a really good question from John, and he asked, "Is there an Xcode for Windows?" And officially, there is no Xcode for Windows. Um, I guess there's different ways to get around that, but I'm just going to say no because I haven't found a successful way to do that with Xcode. So
Right.
it's
Xcode is an Apple product, obviously, and it runs on Apple operating system. There are ways of making Hackintosh or something like that, but um, at that point it's a lot easier. If you're serious about this and you don't have a Mac, it's easier just to find somebody, a friend or someone online that you can trust, and pay them to compile your app. That's probably the best way that I've seen. So I'm going to add another row into this list menu. Each one of these is called a row. I called it dining. That's what it's actually going to say. I'm going to create a new screen called dining and add that. And when I or choose something from the list, oh, sorry. When I add that, I can go back to my screens menu real quick and see that it did add another menu screen for me called dining. So that's just a shortcut. We can actually add them all here, and I'll make the next one the other way of doing it. So I can add one here, and maybe I want to also have attractions, and I'm going to use the same type of menu simple again and add that. When I go back to my screens, you can see now I have my dining and I've got my attractions. For that one, since I created it here and not within the menu, I'll have to go back in here and tell it. In this case, I want another row. And if this is confusing at all, it's really not as confusing as it may look. It's once you do it once or twice, it makes perfect sense. So it gives me a picker here where I can pick which screen I want. So I'm going to pick my attraction screen and add that. So you can see now I've got two rows. And let's go ahead and add another one, maybe sports. And I'm going to call that screen sports. You can call this anything. The row title is what actually is going to display. The name of the screen is just something that triggers me and my project. I know what's going to be on that screen. And let's say we're going to call that one another menu simple. And then let's just do another one called map of Chicago. So I want another row called map of Chicago. I'm just going to call that one map. And I'm going to add in here, in this case, a location map. So now I've got 4 rows. Let's go back to my app here real quick and give it a refresh now that I've added that stuff. Now you can see in my list I've got a very simple looking app, but a functional one nonetheless, showing my home screen here, my 4 different lists. And right now I haven't really configured anything yet, so those are going to lead to other blank lists. And then I'm going to have a map screen that's going to go to a blank map. So now I'm going to take a couple seconds here to add some content to the rest of this app and kind of flesh it out. So going back to my screens menu, let's do the map first. With the map one, you can add, you can see here on the screenshots of what it looks like. You can add these map locations, and you can really get pretty advanced with what those map locations do. But we're just going to drop a pin for Chicago. And in the subtitle, I have this option here of finding the latitude and longitude of the subtitle. So I'm going to call the subtitle Chicago, Illinois, and I'm going to try to find that. And it automatically found the latitude and longitude for me. If this ever fails for you, or if you put in a name of a city like Springfield that has, obviously 10 or 20 different Springfields, if it finds the wrong one for you, you can go in there and use this website here, which we link to, and you can manually punch these numbers in. This is just kind of a shortcut for us. So I'm going to add that. So now I've got one location title on there, and you can add as many of these pins as you want. We're just going to keep one for right now. And now when I go back and I refresh my screen here, once I click on the map of Chicago, it's going to bring me to a map screen, but it's actually going to drop this pin where I told it to, and it's somewhere in Chicago. Let me zoom out so we can see that we are in Chicago. And if you had an actual street address that you could pinpoint right down to, maybe you're making a map of locations for different restaurants, and you could use Google Earth or Google Maps to find the street address and use that other website to pinpoint it right down to the exact coordinates, then you can drop a pin right there and people can zoom into it. And some of the other advanced features of that driving or that map screen is that you can click on it, and I haven't set it up, but you can click on it and have it give you driving directions. So that's something that Apple likes to see, that you're using the full functionality of their phone, where you can have an end user click on a location and get driving directions and use their phone as GPS. So that certainly helps out, making an app more functional. So now it leads us back to these other three. Let's just put another screen in here. So I'm going to go into my dining, and I'm going to add one row title in here, because right now if we go back and look at the dining, it's just that empty menu again. So I'm going to add a location in there. Let's call it Best Hot Dogs. And we're going to call that maybe hot dogs. And I'm going to make this into a custom URL page, which is just basically a website. So it's going to let me link to a website. And when I add that location, I can either go back to my screens and see that screen called hot dogs and click on it, or I can just shortcut it right here and click on it. And this is going to be my web address URL screen. And really the most basic thing you need to do is give it this website. So it's going to default to Google. And I'm going to call that Portillos.com. And if you've ever been to Chicago and had a Portillo's hot dog, you'll know that I'm not lying. So we're going to do that. Let's go back to my screens. I'm going to go to attractions. I'm going to add a row for that one too. Let's say Sears Tower. And we're going to call that one maybe Tower, just for a shortcut name. And we're going to link to another website there too. So now that's going to be one of my rows. I'm going to click on that to get to where I can change this. And that's actually called Willis Tower now. And then my last one here, what was it, sports? Let's add a row for doubles. And let's make that a website also. So let's click on that. And that website is nba.com/polls. Save. And let's go back and look at the app again. Hit my refresh button to make sure it saves all those changes that I've just made. Click on dining. there's my one row, best hot dogs. Click on that row, and it's going to bring me to a web screen menu here for Portillo's. Back out of that, go to attractions, make sure I didn't make any mistakes. Sears Tower brings me to a website. These are obviously not mobile friendly websites that I've chosen. And there's the Willis Tower. And let's back out of that. Look at sports, the Bulls, and here's NBA's website with the Bulls. So now I've made a, I'll go ahead and say ugly app, but I've made a functional app for the city of Chicago. I can go ahead and flesh this out to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of screens and make it really useful. I can flesh out that map to have locations and driving directions and maybe phone numbers and information for all the locations I want to put on it. And that would be that. So let me just make a couple more changes just to make it a little bit prettier. If I go back to my home screen here, and I want to just make it a little bit prettier, I changed the color of the top navigation bar. Let's go to the list layout and color. And first I'll start with the actual screen background color. And I can pull up the selection here. I don't know, what's a good color for Chicago? Red for the Bulls. And save that. Go back to the simulator, hit refresh. Now we've got red. Now I can go to the row background colors and maybe change that to white. Save that. See how that looks? All right, that's getting there. Now I can change the list style to rounded corners, which is a common one for list menus. Refresh that. And now we're starting to look more like an app that you'd expect to see. A very, Apple-ish early style map of having the rows with the background. I'm going to give it an image file name. This is going to require me to do one more thing, but I wanted to show it to you to see how it works. I believe I called that chicago.jpg, okay? So chicago.jpg. I'm telling the control panel that I want to have this file here, chicago.jpg, as the small device, which is what I'm working on right now, the iPhone. I could have a different file for the large device or the iPad. I could use an image URL also if it was linked to a website or just a URL somewhere, a link. But I'm going to use one right here. Now, the only difference that I'm going to have to do is because I've told it that I'm looking for a file, it expects for that file to be in my compiled project. Now, you saw that I compiled the project once in Xcode, and I haven't been to Xcode yet since then. I hit the go button once, and that was it. The only other time that I have to compile is anytime I add something into the project. So all the changes I've made are changes that happen to the configuration, but not to the content, not to the actual contents of the compiled app. So I've just been hitting the refresh button, everything's good. Well, I'm refreshing here and there's no picture showing up. That's because it doesn't know that the picture is there yet. I'm telling it it's there, but I haven't given it. So all I have to really do is go in here, and I can put it anywhere I want. I'm going to drag this Chicago.jpg file right into my images folder, tell it to copy it into the project. Now you can see it lives there. For it to come onto the simulator, I have to recompile. So I hit the run button again. It was real quick. All I had to do is copy that one file back over, and now it's going to recompile for me. It refreshed it once it recompiled it, and now you can see I've got my list menu with the background on there. Now the background image was big enough that it covered up all the background color, so the red color I had is gone. But depending on what you want to do, if you're good with Photoshop and you can create a really nice looking image for a background, then you can obviously tell that this looks a lot better than one of these screens that I started off with, just a simple screen. And you can go from there. I'm going to take a quick detour here, real quick, back to the website. We talked about the plugins, how plugins make things different. Well, here is our list of plugins, and depending on your bandwidth, you didn't see how fast I scrolled through all these, but there's a bunch of them. And depending on what type you want, there may be something like the, let's find this one here, menu with image plugin, which is one of the more popular ones, which lets you create the same type of list menu, but with a header file, if you will, a header image. So you can make the picture, the menu, even that much more customized. So that's adding just a little bit more flair to the menu. Or you can find something like, let's find one of the really fancy ones. Let's say the circle view menu. And this one I really can't do any justice with without animating it. You can find it on YouTube. But you can see how the rows kind of have an arc to them, and as you scroll through them, they'll scroll up and down through that arc. You've seen that in a lot of more professional apps. So that's a good one. And then another one that's nice and fun. Let me see if I can find it in here. I might have passed it up. Well, here's one that's really great. The BTA design menu. It's what I would call list menu on steroids. So you've got a header, you've got the rows, but each row has a background image. Each row also has an icon image, and then several layers of text. So this is really just a very customized version of the list menu. And you can see that this right here compared to this right here is huge difference. And in my experience with compiling things for Apple, if you make it look pretty, they're going to be happy. If you make it look like this, they're probably going to send it back to you and say, that doesn't quite look like an app yet. This looks like an app. This is, nice and pretty. Same thing would hold true for Google. Even if Google doesn't have as strong a approval process, it really doesn't matter there, because your proof is going to be in how many downloads you get, how many people purchase your app. And if you were going to purchase an app from the Google market, and you look at the few screenshots that they give you to look at, there's a huge difference between something that looks like this and something that looks like this. And you can find millions of apps in the Google market that look very simple. So having the availability to customize this is just absolutely huge. And this is all based on, let's say in this example, this BTA design menu, which costs a couple bucks, and you pay that once and you get it forever. You use it in as many apps as you want, for a few bucks. So that is pretty darn cool. So that's my my quick little demo app. I think that brings us up to questions.
Yeah, we have a few questions here. Some pretty much pertaining to some of the stuff you went over already, which is really cool. We have Ellen that asks, can a menu be images with words under them rather than rows with words in them? And you started showing them some different menu options in the plugin market.
Absolutely, yep. Even the simplest one, you can put words here. I think you can put a subtitle there. The menu with image, you can do the same thing. You can add the header image, and then you can, I think in the newest version, you can add an icon to the side. And then going from there, the different types of menus, the more advanced ones, you can really customize pretty nicely.
Yeah, there's many options in the plugin market for different menu styles and looks with images and words, all that kind of stuff. Good question, Ellen. And Steve's asking, why are default icons not installed or available within the control panel?
Okay. in older versions, I think the default icons were included with the download source code, and I think they were the uh, what is what is that open source library of icons? Glyphish. Glyphish.
Yeah, I think they're from there.
There's a group of Glyphish icons that are open source, um, but I think there was just a concern with including them in the source code when it comes time to we're actually distributing them on our behalf instead of you downloading them yourself. I think that's the bottom line. It's very simple to find those Glyphish free ones, and you can simply just drag them. What I usually do is just take all the ones I need. I drag them right into my Xcode project, and then just like this one, I just tell the project which icon I'm going to be using, and it's already compiled into the source. And then the forms is there's always, I love it when people find new icons because I'm like an icon collector. There's always somebody posting, hey, there's a new set of free icons, and there's some really pretty ones, glossy, different colors and stuff like that. So I don't think you'll have any problem finding some decent looking icons.
Cool. Now we have John that asked, can you create an app for iPhone and compile it on Android? And your mic is unmuted, John, if you wanted to speak at all. It's cool if you don't, but.
Well, yeah, I was just wondering if you can compile an app, create it and test it all out on the iPhone, and then recompile it for an Android, or do you have to recreate the whole app?
That's a very good question. So let's go back and look at our project again. When I look at the project that I've been working on, everything that I've done so far has been in the control panel, except for that one file that I did drag in. So all these screens that I've created, at no point did this thing ask me what type of project, if this is an iPhone project or if this is an Android project. The only thing that did ask me is when I downloaded the source code. So if I were to right now download the source code for Android, I could open that up in Eclipse, and it would look identical to what this is. Now there's going to be some subtle differences in screen sizes and the way that Android displays some of their menus, but it's going to be pretty darn close. The only thing you want to be conscious of if you're developing something and you have the idea of developing it multi-platform, which is one of the benefits of doing Buzztouch, create everything once in this control panel and compiling it on two different types of phones. The only thing you want to be conscious of is back with these plugins. If you purchase one of the more advanced plugins, you can see here that this one is iOS only, as opposed to this one would be iOS or Android. So if I wanted to put in maybe that design menu that I was showing you, or that circle menu, then it's iOS only. So if I did that and I compiled it for Android, that screen just wouldn't exist because that plugin doesn't exist. So you would want to make some changes to that particular project to make it have either a list menu or a button menu or some other menu that works for both Android and iOS. But for the most part, for everything that works with both, and you can see that we try our best to make everything cross-platform. Then it'll just work. You don't have to make any changes. You don't have to do it twice. You make all your screens once and compile it in two different environments. So very good question.
Cool. Now we have another question from Steve. He's asking, can you create a quiz screen which keeps track of answers for a daily quiz with leaderboard?
Okay. One of the built-in screens is a quiz screen, but to do exactly what you want it to do, a daily quiz with leaderboards would take some modification to it. I guess that's the best way I can put it. So the actual quiz itself, you can see it works in both Android and iOS, and it comes free with your, in all of your projects. You can make a quiz, no problem. You can actually change the quiz questions on the fly if you wanted to. It would obviously be some upkeep on your side, but since this quiz lives in the control panel, you can change the questions in that control panel daily if you wanted to. But the leaderboard part, there is a way built into it that will save a score and post it to a high score list, but it takes a little bit of coding to get it to save to maybe a website, as opposed to inside your own app. There's two different thought processes. One is, you've got a local high score list in your app, and the other is you have kind of a global high score list where there's a file sitting on a server somewhere that gets updated every time I complete the quiz versus you completing the quiz, and we can compete against each other. So the long story short, yes, you can make a quiz, but getting it to have the leaderboard may be some additional work.
And I'm sure he could post on the forum for help on that, and there'll be members that'll show up and give more specifics for him.
There's a tutorial on doing it for Game Center. So Game Center is kind of like a global leaderboard, not maybe on a daily basis, but it is possible. Good question, though.
And his other question, just after the quiz stuff, or a simple game plugin. And I believe there's some game-ish type plugins that developers are working on. I don't know exactly when they'll be finished, but
yeah. This Buzztouch didn't start off as a gaming environment. That should be obvious, but there's no limitations to what you can do, like I described before. Any code that you find for creating games can obviously be implemented into the source code. It's just a matter of how much work you want to put into it.
And Steve had just to recap on the icons. He said, so just copy the icons into Xcode images folder and use the icon file name in the app.
That's the way I do it. That's the best way that I do it is to copy the files in here, whether it's a few dozen or two or three. They're all very small. They don't add to the size of your project. It is possible to link them as a URL. You could do that, but I always like to compile the project with those built in, so they load up real fast. You don't have to worry about somebody downloading your app and not having Wi-Fi right away and having a blank part on your app. I just like to include those icons in. So copy the ones that you're going to use in and just reference them as file names.
Good questions.
I think the way that we've added to that, which I don't use, but I know a lot of people do use, is using the files and media here, where you can actually upload files to this that get downloaded with your source code. It's just a kind of a shortcut for some reasons, or a long cut for other reasons. It just does the copying for you. I just prefer to drag the things straight into Xcode.
And we have another question here from Sandra. I don't believe she has a microphone on her end. I'll unmute her just in case, but I don't believe she does. But her question is, top navigation bar question. Right button type. Not every button does lead me somewhere. How can I find out easy which type of button I can use? For example, camera. What do I need that I can use this function? It is hard sometimes because if I have saved a right button type and it does not work, then it is not enough to refresh the simulator. You have to refresh the website.
Okay. So let's look at the top navigation bar again here, and this is just our main menu again. And we can see here this drop-down right button type. And it gives me a list of all these different things. All this does is these are kind of built-in graphics that are built into the iPhone, operating system. And it just gives me an option of selecting one of these. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to control anything. If I select camera, it doesn't mean that I'm going to control something. All it does is it gives me a way of linking to another screen. So I would need to link to another screen here. So let's say maybe let's say I picked maybe the information one. I would have to first go in to my screens, and I'll just do this real quick, and add a screen called info. And I'm going to select maybe custom HTML/text and add that. Now when I go back to that main menu screen and select info, all it's really doing is giving me an option to select a screen. So I'm going to select that info screen that I just created and hit save. When I look at the simulator now and refresh, I'll have a button here. Now it's going to go right now to a screen that I have not configured yet, but it's going to go to my info screen that I could add some information to. If I had chosen, in this case, the camera, then in this case it would just be a poor choice of picture. You know, I'm going to click on a camera, I'm going to go to an info screen. What you would want if you really wanted this to be a camera, then you could use a different plugin type, maybe a photo gallery, or if somebody does create a photo taking plugin, which I don't believe there is one yet, but if someone did, then that would be the perfect type of icon to lead to that. But really, this right here is just selecting a built-in icon that's going to lead to a screen.
Hopefully that answered your question, Sandra. Type back in if it didn't, we can cover that more. Steve's got a question. Are there guides on how to compile and submit to Apple and Android? And yes, in the how-to section, some great stuff in there that'll lead you to some YouTube videos as well. Go Northwest has a lot of videos and tutorials on all this kind of stuff. And of course, asking for help on the forums. A lot of members will help you get through that process as well.
Exactly. Apple specifically has a very structured way that they want you to submit stuff, and they have a ton of information on their website if you have a couple weeks to read through it and find out exactly how they want you to do it, and they will tell you exactly, you know, step by step what they think the best process is. Some of the how-to guides that you'll find on our website kind of compress that down to a more learning capable process, but the end result is usually always the same.
Right.
Good question.
And another question, also, is there a Mac tool to size images to correct sizes for iPhone or iPad?
If you're talking about icon sizes, there's an absolute ton of them in the App Store. If you're talking about the images like I use for the background image, then you know, Photoshop is obviously the go-to one. But if you don't have several $100s, then you can use something like, I think Pixelmator is one of the bigger ones. You can use GIMP, which is a free kind of a open source version of Photoshop. So there are a lot of image manipulation software out there for Mac and Windows both.
Right, and a lot of the features in Buzztouch will automatically resize your images. You don't want your images huge, so your app size is huge, but Buzztouch has a lot of built-in features to make your background images fit the screen and those type of things.
Right. Yeah, they'll scale the pictures down.
Right. And another question here: can we create a tab-like screen with tabs at the bottom of the main screen? Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
It's talking about a tab layout.
And let me just show you real quick how to do that. So I'm still here in my control panel. One of my top things here is going to say layout. If I looked at the actual application home, it's on the side here too, layout and tabs. In this, I've got two options. One is the non-tabbed layout, which is what I've been doing. This is a non-tabbed layout, and it says, what screen do you want to be the home screen? So it defaulted to the home screen menu, which is the one that I've been changing to make it look like this. If I wanted to make it a tabbed layout, then I can fill in this information, and I'd have to delete this out. So I'm going to delete this out. I'm going to add maybe home, maybe dining, and maybe sports. And I'd have to label, oh, I did that wrong, but I'll fix it. You have to make sure that these are the right names. All right, so I think dining and sports should be good. And then this is where you'd add those icons in, which I didn't drag any extra in, but I could add in, you know, like house.png is the file that I always use for the home icon. And when I hit save to that, I have up to 5 on this particular layout. I've used 3 of them. So when I refresh, my first farthest left tab is always going to be this one here, and it's going to display whatever that screen was. So in this case, I would never have a list menu listing out the same thing as my tabs, but I'm just going with the same screens I already had. If I go to dining, it's going to bring me to my dining menu. If I go to sports, it's going to bring me to my sports menu. So this is how you would create that, and if I did actually drag my icons in, then I'd have those icons glowing right here. But it's really that simple. I like to try to think, you know, what my layout's going to be, kind of map it out, maybe draw it out on some paper, and then create my screens up. I like to create all my screens up first, at least the main, what I think my first 5, you know, tabs are going to be, and then I get them going in here, and then from that, once I get my 5 landing spots for my 5 tabs, then I start fleshing out those menus and the content from there. So good question, but that's really as simple as it gets, how you switch between a tabbed and non-tabbed layout.
Good stuff. And there's another question here. How do we implement an RSS feed plugin?
I'm not going to be able to demonstrate that on here because I'm using a guest account, but someone did just add
yeah, there's a plugin that we can
plugins
look at
called the Simple RSS. So here's a screenshot of what it would look like. You're going to give it an RSS feed, and it's going to pull them into the app for you. So that's it's definitely a possibility.
Yep, and it's just using a plugin, making it as simple as possible for you. And next question: are these plugins only for use on Buzztouch, or can I find another plugin and bring it into Buzztouch?
That's a good question. What we call plugins may be different than what other people may call plugins. So for the most part, if you want to get technical, our plugins are kind of methods to an iPhone application, or they're whatever the equivalent for a method is in Java, and basically you can create your own too, and add them in. But as far as taking one of these plugins and dragging it into something that you've created from another website, you'd have to do a lot of tweaking, and that's just because of the way our core files work and the way our configuration works. You can see that when I've been compiling the Xcode, all the source code that I have, I haven't been making changes to it. So my source code already knows what to do with these plugins, and that's just a matter of all this core, all these files here. And you can see that there's just tons and tons and tons of code in each of these that kind of tells the app what to do with the plugins. So you can bring other code in from other sites and kind of use them as a plugin, but you couldn't really export these plugins out to another project and expect them to work too well. I hope that answered the question.
Yep, it looks like it did. And another question: what's the difference between nickname and label?
Trying to think of where they saw that.
Probably when you're making the menu list, they probably saw how you were adding a nickname maybe to the...
Okay, all right, let's look at that screen again. I know the screen nickname here is just going to be what I call it. When I created that screen, I called it something. So in some cases it matched the same thing as my label in my row title. In some cases I made it different. So the label is actually what I want it to show on the screen here. Like Map of Chicago is the label, but the actual name of that screen is really just Map, I think. Yeah, just Map. So that's the nickname of the screen. So you can see that I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 list menus. Those are all using the same plugin, but they're different instances of that plugin. So each one has its own unique nickname. And for each of those menus, I'm going to go in and configure it with the colors and the rows and stuff that I want. The labels themselves are really just what gets displayed on the screen.
Yeah, I usually just think of nicknames as just the names that keep your project organized for yourself, names that you're
Right.
familiar with. Good question, really good. And another one, can we convert HTML code into a plugin?
You can take HTML code and do it two different ways. If I look at my available plugins, there's one that's called an HTML custom HTML, and then there's another one called HTML doc. The custom HTML, like I did for the info screen, let me just show you that one real quick, is just going to give me a block here that I can copy some HTML into, and then I can have it actually display in the app. The difference between that, this kind of lives in the app and it gets compiled in the app as you know, stuff that I can edit in the source code later. I could, if this was maybe like in this case, my info or my terms and conditions or a disclaimer screen, I can go back in here and edit it a year later, and it kind of pops back into their app, you know, with that update. The other one that I said was HTML doc. So if I had an actual HTML file that had some images linked onto it, maybe some tables and stuff, I could drag that file right into Xcode, and I usually just drag it right into the docs file. So I could have HTML files that I created with an HTML editor, and then that's the way I prefer to do it. If it's going to be static text that never changes, I'll go ahead and just drag that file in there so that it gets compiled with it, and it gets shipped out with the app. But you could do it either way. You could do it with the HTML doc screen, or you could do it with the custom HTML where you can cut and paste stuff into it.
Cool, good stuff. Next question, what is the max number of rows on a simple menu? And I know I've made apps with at least 200-300 rows in them. I'm not sure what the max is, but
Yeah, I don't I don't think you'll find a max, but the performance may start to degrade.
right.
When you navigate to that screen, it has to build that list, and it builds it from the code. The source code grabs it from your configuration file, and you could be at that spinning wheel for a while, depending on the age of the device. The newer iPhones obviously will display it quicker, but I don't think there is a written max anywhere. If you ever do achieve one, let us know.
Yeah, I know I had a row menu with about 400 items in it, and it worked fine. So
Yep,
the challenge is
I've
on.
had I've had some up in the 400 or 500 range too. So
Yeah.
I think
And
my finger would get tired of swiping through.
yeah, it gets a little crazy. And Sandra's asking again, and I made a note of this question so we didn't forget it earlier, but it might be a little more technical, so I wanted to get back to this. But she's asking, can you please explain my first question? There is a Buzztouch plugin, and that had an update, but it is saved on another website now. I think it's from Mr. David. How can I bring
Okay.
that into Xcode?
All right. So there has been, before the plugin market became the plugin market, there was other ways of distributing. And Mr. David has a website called Buzztouch Mods, and he's got some plugins on there that he's updated. And really, all you have to do is just take the download and just drag it in here. And when I expand out my BT plugins folder, you can see that this is what it started with, because I'm just a guest, and these are the ones that are built in. If I had purchased more plugins, when I download the code, those purchased ones will show up in here. But if I've downloaded one from Mr. David's website, I can just drag that folder right into here, and it'd be ready to go. The only problem is if you're bringing a plugin from someplace else, how can you control that plugin from the control panel? And you cannot. If you're using self-hosted, which we'll talk about in a little bit, then there's ways of doing that self-hosted, and there's some advanced ways to make the code yourself. But for the most part, they kind of work better if they started at Buzztouch and they live in Buzztouch, and they'll show up in this in your control panel. But there are ways to get it working. If you have specific questions, I'll be happy to entertain those later on.
Yeah, and the
about.
form again. I keep jumping in with the form, but that's also a really good place for these questions because you can get a lot of individual help uh, without a time limit on it either. So,
All right.
um, got a bunch more questions. Very cool stuff here.
All right.
Um, Steve is asking, I was thinking if I could create a reusable plugin starting with HTML5 code. Maybe there is a guide on dating a plugin that is simple enough for new coders. And I think down here he was saying a guide on creating a plugin that is simple enough for new coders. And we have been uh, helping new coders grasp the concept of creating plugins. And the best thing might be for you, Steve, is to watch a video on YouTube that David did on creating plugins. I don't know the exact link, but I could
If
find
you
it.
search
Yeah.
for "Let's Make a Plugin,"
Yeah, that's it.
"Let's Make a Plugin" in Buzztouch, you'll find it. Um, Susan's another person to reach out for. Susan is coordinating the plugin market, and she does weekly training sessions for anybody that wants to be a plugin developer. Right now, they're focusing on some Android stuff and getting people up to speed on that. But yeah, I mean, if you've got an idea for a plugin, it may be something that you create yourself. It may be something that you suggest to the the greater audience, and somebody else says, "Yeah, it's a good idea. I can do that for you." It really just depends. We're very young into the infancy of the plugin market. That there's been some changes over the last couple months since it launched, and it's just getting better and better. But we are going through growing pains where the true strength of the plugins is also our weakness in the fact that we have to, you know, we need people to understand how to make them before we can make them.
And we have what types of sound files can be used, like .wav files?
That's going to depend on the device, I believe. So Android's going to have, if you search for Android supported media, you'll find a web page on Google's Android site that has what type of media files they use for audio and video. Same thing for Apple. You can't go wrong with MP3, obviously. Um, I think Wave might work, and then they've got their Apple formats like the AIFF and the MP4, MV4 for video, stuff like that. It's just something that you want to Google to make sure that you're going to put it in the correct format for the device that you're programming for.
Yeah, the sound files. I think the .mp3 files you can't go wrong with for the most part, and
Right.
.wav files would be probably a little big anyway. You'd probably want to compress them
Sure.
to an MP3. But yeah, really good stuff. And oh, and Sandra was just talking about. I guess maybe this goes back to when you were playing with the screen type with the camera icon. And I think
Okay.
maybe this has to do with it. It is the image gallery plugin and the camera email plugin. Maybe she was referring to those. That
Okay.
maybe she's calling those screens plugin screens.
Right.
But I believe she said that she understands.
Okay. Yeah. I think just understanding that all it is we're giving you a quick and easy way of adding that picture on there that can be different on each screen, and then just knowing that that's going to just essentially link to another screen that you've created. It can link to something that's already linked another way. Like a lot of times I'll put that info button up there, but also in my more menu somewhere I'll have, the disclaimer list that I can get to. But that's really just what it is. It's just a simple way of adding a graphic to your top nav bar and having it linked to some of your content.
Yep, and Sandra just said all is fine. Thanks.
Cool.
And I think I'm caught up on questions.
All right.
Anybody else have anything before we talk about
We've
our next topic?
we've obviously gone over our 90 minutes, but that concerns me none. Like I said, I'll be here until I answer all the questions. There are a couple more topics I do want to go over
We've
before
got
we end the webinar.
we've
So,
we've got one more quick question here before we move on.
okay.
It's from Steve. I want to create my first iOS Android app that is basically information about me. Do you know if Apple has any issues with these types of apps? I can throw in a quiz to make it more interactive.
Um, yeah, I don't. I think as long as you make it useful, then they won't have a problem with it. I mean, they don't like, marketing ploys, making an app about a product or something that has no functionality other than just advertising itself. But I've seen, apps for politicians. I've seen apps for, bands or musicians, photographers. So as long as you make it functional to an end user, whether it's a fan of yours or whatever, then I think you'll be able to make it.
Yeah, and you're on the right track, Steve, with the throwing in the quiz, making it more interactive. A good eye on that.
Very cool. Well, I'm gonna jump through a couple more slides here just to cover some more information. If your time is up and you have to disappear, then you're not going to hurt my feelings. But if you're willing to stick around, then I'm willing to stay here as long as it takes to get all these questions answered. Sometimes 90 minutes isn't enough, and I'm happy to stick around.
Right.
So let's go back to where we
And
were here.
really quick, and this is Andy just asked a question. This is what we're going to start talking about now. He would like to hear about self-hosting and the pros and cons of that. And we're going to talk a
Okay,
little bit about that now. So good segue.
very cool. Now this is not meant at all when we get talking about membership, not meant at all to sound like a sales pitch. If we had to define ourselves as salespeople, I think we'd be far worse salespeople than we are app developers. So that's not the intent at all. This isn't going to be a high-pressured sales pitch. This section is just really to describe what your options are as a guest or a member. Since Buzztouch has been around for about 4 years, in one form or another, there wasn't really any money exchanged up until just recently, and that's just simply to help the whole machine running. It was being self-funded by David for many years, and that can only happen for so long before it has to kind of pay for itself. So I'm gonna discuss the difference between what a guest is and what a member is. This has just changed January 1st of this year um, to just a very easy to understand membership process. There's not going to be a huge sales table with 17 different options of how I want to subscribe to something. It's just simple. To us, you're either a guest or you're a member, and we entertain both. This we're just going to list out what the difference is. So for a guest, which would be I just found the website today, signed up, put in my email address, confirmed it, and got my login information to my control panel. Now I'm a guest. I didn't pay anything. With that, you can create up to 3 apps in your Buzztouch hosted control panel, meaning the same control panel I've been showing you as Joe Guest or Joe User, whatever I named him. You saw that I downloaded the source code. I didn't have to pay a single penny for it. I downloaded it, I compiled it, I made my app. I could submit that Chicago app to Apple today as a developer, and I didn't pay Buzztouch anything. Obviously, you get access to the forum, access to make purchases in the plugin market. There was one slight distinguishing thing that you may have noticed in the plugin market, that these prices here will list guest versus member, and a lot of times the member one may be free or less money than the guest one. So that's going to be one thing, and this money, for the most part, it goes to the plugin developer. So this is their decision. In this case, this is username Red Dog made this plugin, this RSS plugin, and so these are the prices I want to charge. I want to charge the members $7.99. I want to charge a guest $12.99. So that is one difference between a guest and a member. But anybody can purchase those plugins. And then just like you're doing right now, you may attend the public webinars and then select live events. So you can, with your 3 apps, you can do whatever you want. You can use them to learn from, or you can use them to actually make 3 apps. I know that we have several guests that have made apps and they're in the App Store, and that's all they needed to do. They wanted to make their 1 or 2 apps and get them in the App Store, and that's all they do, and that's great. We love to hear success stories like that. So we compare that to what a member does. A member can have access to 50 apps in their Buzztouch control panel. So after the first 3, It won't let you add any more if you're a guest. When you're a member, you can make up to 50. You have the option of also using the self-hosted software, which is self-hosted software is basically a download that you can download and upload it to your own website if you have your own web server somewhere or your own domain name. And you basically can create your own little Buzztouch where you can have your own logins, and with those you can control, you can have as many apps as you want. So that self-hosted software, it's there for many reasons, whether it's just you wanting to have control on your own website of your own development, or if you wanted to invite other people to develop, maybe you're a school teacher and you've got 30 people in your class and you want to set up your own little environment. You can set up user accounts for all 30 of your students and have them on your own self-hosted server. It works very similar, almost identical to how the Buzztouch works. It just works on your server versus on the Buzztouch server. Obviously, keep the source code for any apps you create. One of the other benefits of being a member is the push notification features that's just been added in recently. That's something that works on all of our backend. There's a lot of ways to download crazy SDKs and integrate them into your apps and use other third-party services to do push notifications. We just decided let's go ahead and put it into, build it right into the control panel. So that's something that's built into the control panel for a member. Buy or sell plugins. So anybody can buy a plugin, but as a member, you can actually create a plugin and sell it yourself. And we have several members that have obviously more than paid for their membership by selling plugins to other people. There will also be exclusive member-only webinars. So some of the training webinars may be for members only. Well, you have to register from your members control panel, and then there may be live events that are for members only. And then you get a nice nifty member badge to display in the form. If we look real quick to what that means when we look in the form, and this is just another one of those things that even if it doesn't seem like it means much, I can see that here this person does not have a member badge, so they're just a guest. But if I go back and find another post, you can see this person's a member, this person's a member, so on and so forth. And really it's just a way of us letting you guys display that you've become a member, that you've invested in our product and service. And whether it lets somebody answer your question quicker, if another member would be willing to answer your question because you're a member, that's not really the intent, but it does kind of happen. I've seen it happen where the members help each other really quick, but everybody helps each other. It's just a nice way of bragging that you're doing this, that you're serious about it. And then any other member-only improvements that are added later. We're always brainstorming. The whole team is brainstorming on ways that we can create something new or add some more benefit to the members, just to thank you guys for investing the little bit of money here. When we look at the website again in our control panel, you can see that I've got here that I'm a guest and I've got an opportunity to join and make a purchase and pay. And as a thank you to you guys for listening to me ramble on for the last hour and 45 minutes about what our product is, we've got a promo code that you can enter in. So normally $79.99 per year, and that I'm sorry, and that gets that gets you the access to that membership for a full year. When you click on the join, it's going to bring you to a page where you can put in a promo code. Where is it? Promo code right here. And I've set up a promo code for this webinar called Windy City, since we've been talking about making an app for Chicago. So if you type that in, you'll get a $20 discount off of your sign up, which will be $59.99 instead of $79.99. And that will be your renew price too. If you stick around for the year, and a year from now you'll get a reminder, hey, do you want to renew again? That will be your renewal price. So that's our way of thanking you guys for listening and spending the time to want to understand how the process works, get a head start on the whole mindset of what to do at Buzztouch. Then just type that in, all one word, Windy City, and you'll get a discount on your sign up. Like I said, we're not high sales. When we first described this member guest process, it sold itself to everybody that has been around using this. It was kind of a no-brainer. If you're just now finding it, then we do understand that it is a conscious decision that if you want to invest your $60 or $80 or whatever the price is, to get this, you may not know yet if this is the right solution for you, and we understand that. That's why we give you the 3 apps to play with. We give you access to the forums to ask as many questions as you can. We give you the access to the webinars to come back. If you came back in 2 weeks and sat through another one of our webinars and asked us some more questions, ask as many questions as you want. We want to make sure that you're happy with what it is that you're investing in. We think that the price is very fair for what you get, and like I said, I don't try to compare ourselves to other products, by name, but this is really small price to pay in comparison to some of the other solutions out there. So with that, that's the last little piece of information that we wanted to talk about, and I'll open up to any last-minute questions, any questions about the membership process, or any other questions that may have popped up in your head.
Yep, Steve has a question. It kind of goes in tandem with Andy's earlier comment about self-hosting, the pros and cons of that. And Steve's asking, why would you want to run your own self-hosted Buzztouch server? And can that be set up on a hosting provider like Bluehost?
Yes, it's a it gets set up on a what we call a LAMP server, Linux, Apache, MySQL server. Pretty much any hosting account that you see out there is a Linux-based LAMP server, and it will run on those. But there are some intricacies to PHP that require certain ports to be open or certain PHP things. So you may want to ask around first to see who's had success and not. I know a lot of people use HostGator, Bluehost, some of the free servers even, and they get it set up. It may take a couple tries, but you kind of have to know what you're doing with FTP and how to manage your own control panel of your hosting provider to get it set up, how to create a MySQL database. If you don't know how to do that, then there are people like David, Mr. David, who provides a service where I think it's like $5 or $10 a month or something like that, where he sets it up for you, puts it on his own server, and just gives you the login information. And if you are new to this and you really want the self-hosted platform, then that's a good way to go. He's not, he's been a long-time user of the product, just like me and Ian. He's not affiliated with us, but we're happy to see that he's able to, supply that kind of a service. Now, the benefits, why you would want to, that's a really good question. One, the first reason that I could see right away is if you wanted to create more than 50 apps, then that's the way to go. The other reasons would be if you want more control of your control panel, then there are some modifications, like Mr. David again has made some modifications to the control panel that you can kind of change how it looks. And I wish I had some links. I know that he's set up some web servers, different places for maybe teachers and stuff like that. And it doesn't say Buzztouch on it. It says, www.somebodyelseswebsite.com, and you log into it, you create your apps, and you're using the whole Buzztouch process. You just don't know you're using Buzztouch. So I guess they call that, private branding or rebranding. You can do it that way, or maybe you just want to tinker around and just do it for the sake of doing it. If you have your apps, the way that I've described creating an app by compiling the project and then making all your changes in the control panel, that obviously depends on your ability to get to that control panel. So if you want more control over that and you have the fear that Buzztouch is going to disappear, then having your own server be that control panel, you are in direct control of being able to log in and make changes to your own apps. So that's going to be one of the big reasons. If I had to rank them, I'd say more than 50 apps, That would be a huge reason to go self-hosted. And just the peace of mind of knowing that if Buzztouch disappeared tomorrow, you'd still be able to log into some type of control panel and add content to your app, then that it would be another reason.
Right, and you can customize your self-hosted server. So if you wanted to make a business out of making apps, once you get really good at this, you can slap your own name on there and have your own app building business, basically.
Exactly.
And John's asking, do you have to be a member to self-host?
Yes. Yes. With self-hosting, that is right on. If I go back to the website, and what is it, under pricing would be a good page to look at. Self-hosted software, that is, one of the perks that you get for being a member. Yeah, that's kind of cut and dry. There is stipulations to how that self-hosted works and how it lets you compile apps, and that's all based upon what they call an API call back to the Buzztouch. So, yes.
Yes. And Ellen's thanking us. She has to go since she's watching the Spurs game, but she loves that you threw the. She's from Illinois and loves that you threw the Bulls fans in there. So very cool.
Very cool.
And Steve is saying, I'm gonna be a member soon. Everything looks cool. How long is the promo code good for? And do we get the same price for member renewals?
We've obviously not gone through a full year yet, but everything that I've heard so far from our team is that the price that you sign up for is going to be the price that you renew at. Now, if let's say John had already signed up and he paid a $79.99, and he's saying, "Oh shucks, I should have waited and saved the $20." If you come and when it comes time to renew, it probably won't be hard to find a promo code of some sort to renew at that other price. To address the question of how long that's going to last, I created the promo code today and I put a 2-month window on it, just because I know we're going to post this to YouTube, and if somebody found this a month from now, I'd want them, if they sat through the whole thing and got to the end of the 2 hours, I'd want for them to get the same benefit that someone who sat through tonight with us. So you've got two months on that.
Cool. And he's also asking, oops, sorry.
Usually we keep it, to like a 2-week window, because there's going to be another webinar in 2 weeks, but I just went ahead and set that up just because I know that we'd like to post this one on YouTube and make sure that somebody doesn't come up with a dead promo code.
And he's also asking, is there an affiliate program, since I know a bunch of people who I could potentially sign up?
There isn't a affiliate program that you can click on a link and read about right now, but if you have that idea in mind, then I would definitely contact one of the team members, maybe Steven, and tell him, and I'm sure that he can set you up with something. You would have to be, of course, a member to be able to do that, I believe. But if we go to the About screen here and see Steven, he's our money dude. So if you know a way of making some money for us, then he would obviously want to know about that. Great question.
Yeah, awesome. And from Andy, how does a newsstand app differ than a regular app? Any plans to add some type of newsstand plugin for digital magazines, PDFs?
That's a good question. I haven't dealt with newsstand apps. I haven't developed one yet, so I'm not exactly sure how this middle process differs. If it's the same type of app that gets compiled and just gets submitted to a different section of the App Store. But I don't know of any plugins per se that are targeting that type of model just yet.
You haven't seen anything like that. I mean, I know we do have some nice PDF plugins themselves, but as far as calling it a newsstand app, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, and that's still kind of new to Apple. And in some cases, I have heard of members submitting something and Apple suggesting, hey, that would be better for a newsstand versus an app. And I have seen people ask it in the forums, but I just don't recall of a cut and dry solution just yet.
And Sandra's asking, can I use this promo code to buy a plugin?
There's no promo codes for plugins just yet. The money works different for plugins versus membership. The membership you just pay once, and then you'll renew. Once you become a member, then you add funds to your plugin account, and then you'll be able to buy the plugins from there. But no, there's no right now discounts or plugin promo codes yet, other than the obvious one of the membership having a distinct advantage to the price of the plugins. In a lot of cases, them being free or much reduced.
Right, and the developers of the plugins are getting paid when you buy them, so it's hard for us to say that we're gonna just give their plugin away.
Right.
That they created.
Right. Down the road, we've got a lot of ideas about packaging them together or making some ways of bundling them or stuff like that. We just have to work out all the logistics of who gets paid, who gets, where the discount goes and stuff like that.
Right. And Steve's asking, to use an app created with Buzztouch, does the user have to be connected to the internet?
No. But to to more specifically answer that question, it depends on how you create the app. And that's one of the concerns I had when I first started. Is I wanted the app to be usable on an iPod Touch or an iPad that maybe had Wi-Fi access sometimes and didn't have access other times. So there's ways of creating your app so it doesn't require any internet at all. Now, obviously, the initial purchase or the initial download from the App Store requires it, but you can package everything in so that it's all in the app when it gets launched and it never needs internet. In addition to that, anything that does need internet, so let's say, for example, on this one here, if this screen here I didn't include in my package, I didn't compile it in there, I left it as a URL, the first time it launches and the first time it downloads that, it'll cache it into the app itself. So the next time I load this app and I don't have internet, it's not going to look for the URL anymore. It's going to find this file that it already downloaded. So a lot of the content, PDF files, music files, pictures, will work very similarly. When you get into things that may stream, if you had a streaming audio link in there, then obviously that would not work unless the user had internet. But that's a great question, because that's what you want to think of when you're designing your app and how you want to link your assets to the app to make sure that the users that you're targeting are going to be able to use them with the devices they're using.
Hey, great question. There's also a really good how-to in the how-to section of Buzztouch on online versus offline. So
yeah, it's been kind of referred to as online versus offline, meaning that there's ways you can obviously see that I've created this online app that I can make my changes in my control panel and see those changes happen real time at the app user. But maybe I don't want that to happen, and if you do that, then you create what's been termed an offline app, meaning that it deploys, it gets shipped out with a certain amount of assets, and if it ever needs to change, you'd have to go through a full, complete update process.
Right, and Steve's saying, I was thinking of the RSS feed, for example. Would that be cached?
I believe that once you download, the headers, I guess is the best term for the RSS feed, those will be cached, but anytime you want to update that, then you would obviously need to have internet access.
Right.
So the headers should be cached, but the content past the headers, the actual links, may not be, depending on if the user browsed to them or not.
And John just said, thanks, guys. Got to run. And so we thank you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. And Sandra's saying this is her first webinar. I would like to watch this webinar again. Is this possible? And yes, it is. I'm going to convert this recording of tonight, and then I'll post it. And in your webinars and events screen, you'll be able to click on the, I don't know if you want to go to that screen, yep, Chris, just so she can see. Sometime tomorrow, look for that link. You'll be able to click on that and watch it again through YouTube.
Right here, you can see if I browse all the way down to one of the previous Let's say new user. There's another one. Welcome to Buzztouch. You can see that it's got a link here to the video. So the one that we're doing right now will obviously be in April, and right here will be the link to the video once he posts it. Now, it's not always perfect the way it captures. There may be some lag in the screen, but since you did sit through it already, you'll kind of know, you'll be able to understand what it is that we were doing, even if there is some lag to the screen. That's just one of the weird things about converting the GoToWebinar file to a YouTube file.
Right, but it'll be there. So we've got John said thanks. He's got to run. And Andy saying thanks for the webinar. Very helpful seeing you demo the different menus and screens. Thank you, Andy. We enjoy doing this stuff.
Yep, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, right.
I wish I could show you more.
Yeah, there's so much you can do with this. Steve saying thanks. Got to go. Starbucks is kicking me out. Thanks, guys. Great webinar. Have an awesome evening. We thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for stealing their bandwidth.
Yeah, right. And Sandra's just said that she understands that we'll be posting the webinar.
Very cool.
So does anyone else have any more questions? This was really fun for us tonight. We really enjoy doing these and meeting new members and answering questions.
Yep, looks like just Sandra and Steve's being escorted out the door as we speak, probably.
Yeah. So great, guys. I guess I'll wrap up by saying thanks to Chris for presenting tonight to you guys. And I can't stress enough how useful the forum is. Get in there and introduce yourselves. Say hi, network. That's one of the biggest things you can do to get your app off the ground and be a success. And we do these webinars every 2 weeks. So don't be shy to even attend it again. Learn some new stuff or help other members, all that good stuff. That's what Buzztouch is about. Sandra's saying thanks for everything. Bye-bye. So bye-bye, Sandra. We appreciate you.
Absolutely.
And do you have any final thoughts, Chris, or you?
Looks like just Steve's left an audience, but for anybody listening or viewing this in the future on YouTube, thank you so much for spending the time and investing your time to learn this product and see how it works. And we look forward to seeing everything that you make, and we love to see finished apps and go download them and test them out and see what you've done with our product.
All right, so thanks, guys. Looking forward to talking to everyone again. See you on the forums. Have a good night.
Good night.